Welcome to another video. So in this video we're going to be doing the rear brakes on a Hyundai Santa Fe. Little brain freeze there. Anyway, as you can see, this rotor is very neglected. So it really needs them. So generally what I do as a practice also is if I put brakes on it, I just go ahead and stick rotors on it. They're not that horribly expensive, and you know, if they last the life of your pads or shoes or whatever, I mean, what can you say? We have here, we got our new rotor, new pads, and first thing you want to do is you always clean these off. So they put oil or something on there to keep them from rusting during shipping and whatever. So get you some brake cleaner, spray it on there real good and wipe it off with a rag. So this is not a hard job at all. It's going to be a short video and you're going to see how easy it is. And you know, just for the inconvenience of taking your vehicle to a shop, it's going to be worth your time to do. What we're going to do is we're going to get right into it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take the 2 bolts for the caliper out. So once we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to stick a pry bar right in here. Got my pry bar here, and pry back on it a little bit, because these almost always have a ridge right here on the edge. So if the caliper is tight, it doesn't want to come over that ridge. So if you pry back on it a little bit, then you'll be able to slide this caliper straight off. That's what we're going to do next, and then we'll move on and see what we got. Okay, so we got that off, and you see I just set the caliper back here on the swing arm. Next thing we got to do is there's just 2 bolts, one up here and one down lower, that holds your the caliper bracket on, and they're both for the caliper and for the bracket. They're number 14. Pretty simple to get off. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out these 2 Phillips screws here to get our rotor off. Now, more than likely this rotor is going to be rusted on there. If you can see, this one's all nice and clean. I just did the wheel hubs or the wheel bearings on this. So if you're curious, you know, subscribe. We did the front and the rear wheel hubs. They are different. And we did CV axle joint. We have the fuel gauge sensor or float. We replaced that. So we got quite a bit of other things on this car too. But at any rate, what you're going to have to do is generally, once you get this off, you can get a clean shot and knock on it with a hammer some, knock it loose, knock it sideways. Because I promise you, inside here too is also your emergency brake. And there's more than likely a ridge on the inside of there too. You just got to keep working at it. It's going to be ignorant if it's been on there for a long time. But anyway, that's what we're going to do. We're going to remove this, 2 bolts, 2 screws, and we're going to get the rotor off, and then we'll move on. Okay, so everything's off. As you can see, there's your emergency brake pads. Good time to check everything and make sure everything looks good. You can see we got a brand new wheel hub, so we're all good there. So this is where the emergency brake rides on the inside here. So the first thing we got to do, we're going to stick the rotor back on. You got to line up the 2 holes for your Phillips screws and just stick the rotor back on there. Then we're going to put the bracket on, and what I wanted to show you is, if you can see how the shoes fit in there, they have these little slides right here. The shoes fit in. So if they're nice, they give you these little clips new, but they weren't nice to me, so they did not give me those little clips. But at any rate, what you're going to do is get both the shoes out of there. If you have the old ones, what you need to do is take a piece of sanding cloth, clean it up, and then new or old, you want to put just a dab of grease. Now, this, you have to be careful because you don't want grease on your brakes. They do make grease for brake assembly parts. So you just, you know, put a thin layer of grease on here on both sides where the shoes are after it's cleaned up. because if not, the shoes will stick. And I think that's what they were doing to this one. They're not compressing because they stick. So at any rate, we're going to put the rotor on. We're going to put this thing on. We're going to clean up those little brackets, or whatever you want to call them, spring things. And then I'll show you what we got left to do. Okay, so there it is. Our rotor's on. We got our pads set in place. Like I say, you know, a little bit, tiny bit of grease on here, tiny bit of grease on the top. And we just squeeze our, after we put the bracket back on, we put our pads in. And we got our caliper. So I guess before we get to the caliper, let me mention, I always put a little bit of Loctite on the bolts for the bracket, just as a precaution, a safety extra thing. You don't have to, but I think it's a good idea. So this little thing with a screw thing with a flat bar on there, you can get it at any hardware store, any auto parts store. They're cheap. They work great for pushing the caliper back in. And what I do is I just stick an old shoe in there, or old pad in there, as you can see. You screw it in till you can't get it in anymore, and then you can slide the caliper back on here. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, there it is, all put back together. Be sure to subscribe, take a look. We have videos on the CV axles for this car, replacing the fuel sensors, the wheel hub assemblies, and more. So I hope this helped you out. Thank you for watching. You have a pleasant day, and we'll see you in the next video.